Hello, and welcome to The Restful Historian. Tonight we're going to build New York City. Not the New York you know from photographs and movies, but the New York that was constructed beam by beam, rivet by rivet, by men who climbed into the sky and danced with death to create the most famous skyline in the world. Close your eyes and imagine that you are standing on a steel beam, 8 inches wide, 20 stories above the street. The wind is constant at this height, pushing against you, trying to knock you off balance. Your hands are cold despite your work gloves. Your tool belt weighs heavy at your waist. Below you is nothing but air and the city far away, looking like a toy, like something unreal. Above you, more steel rises, the skeleton of a building that does not yet exist but that you are creating, piece by piece, level by level, reaching toward the sky. This is your job. This is how you make your living. And this is how New York was built, by men like you, immigrants mostly, Irish and Italian and Canadian. Men who came to America with nothing and found that they could make good money if they were willing to risk everything, if they were willing to work at heights that made most people dizzy just thinking about them. Tonight, we will experience what it was like to build the great towers of New York. We will feel the cold steel, hear the deafening pneumatic hammers, experience the terror and exhilaration of working hundreds of feet in the air with nothing between you and death but your own balance and luck. We will build 3 of the most famous buildings in the world, the Woolworth Building, the Chrysler Building, and the Empire State Building. And we will understand what it cost in sweat and fear, and sometimes in blood, to create the vertical city. But before we begin our ascent, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to The Restful Historian. I'm curious to know where in the world you're joining me tonight, so please leave a comment. And now, let us climb. Let us leave the safety of the ground and rise into the air, into the work, into the danger. Let us build the sky. Your name is James O'Rourke, though that is not the name you were born with. You were Seamus O'Rourke when you left County Cork in 1906, 17 years old, carrying everything you owned in a canvas bag. You left behind a family farm that could not support all its sons, left behind a country that seemed to offer nothing but poverty and endless labour for other people's benefit. You arrived in New York speaking English with a thick brogue that made Americans laugh or pretend not to understand. You took whatever work you could find, loading docks, digging subway tunnels, hauling stone. The work was brutal, the pay minimal, but it was more than you could have earned in Ireland. And there was something else, harder to name. Possibility. The sense that your life was not already written, that you could become something here. In 1911, you lied about your experience and got hired as an ironworker. You said you had worked on buildings in Boston, that you knew steel, that heights did not bother you. All lies, but you were young and strong and desperate, and the foreman needed bodies, so he hired you. You learnt the work by doing it, by watching the experienced men, by making mistakes that could have killed you, but somehow did not. Now in March of 1912, you are part of the crew building the Woolworth Building. This is going to be the tallest building in the world, 60 stories, 792 feet, taller than anything humans have ever built. The pay is good, $1.50 a day, double what you could earn in safer work. But the work earns that pay. Men fall, men die. You know this, accept this, try not to think about it too much. It is early morning, not yet dawn, and you are climbing. The construction elevator is reserved for hauling materials, so you climb the steel frame itself, hand over hand, foot after foot, pulling yourself up the columns and beams. Your tool belt is heavy at your waist. Wrenches, a hammer, a leather pouch for bolts. Your muscles burn from the effort. Your breath comes hard in the cold air. You are climbing to the 23rd floor, except there is no floor yet. There is just a grid of steel beams, 22 stories above the street, with nothing between them but empty air. You climb past the 20th floor, past the 21st, and finally pull yourself onto the 23rd level beam grid. You sit for a moment, catching your breath, letting your arms rest. Your crew is already here. Paddy, your cousin who arrived from Ireland last year, young and reckless, always laughing even when he should be scared. Big Mike from Newfoundland, huge and quiet, the strongest man you have ever known. And Connolly, your foreman, an older Irish American who has been doing this work for 20 years and is missing 2 fingers from his left hand, lost to a rivet that went through them in 1903. "Sleeping in, were you?" Connolly asks when you arrive, though there's no real reproach in his voice. Everyone climbs at their own pace. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes at this height are not forgivable. The work begins. A crane operated from ground level swings a steel beam toward your position. This beam is 40 feet long, weighs several tons, hangs from a cable swinging slightly in the morning wind. Your job is to guide it into place, to steady it, to bolt it temporarily to the vertical columns so that it becomes part of the building's skeleton. You stand on a beam 8 inches wide, balancing like you are walking a tightrope, and reach out to grab the incoming beam. The metal is cold through your gloves. The beam has momentum, wants to swing, wants to twist and turn at the end of its cable. You fight it, using your body weight, coordinating with Paddy on the other end, through shouted words that the wind almost tears away. Minutes pass. The beam resists, swings, finally aligns. Big Mike fits bolts through the connection plates, tightening them just enough to hold everything temporarily. The beam is part of the structure now, though it is not permanent yet. That will require riveting. You sit on the newly placed beam, legs dangling over the side, 250 feet of empty air below you, and eat breakfast. You pull bread and cheese from your jacket pocket, the bread a little squashed from the climb. Paddy shares a flask of coffee, still lukewarm, bitter with too much sugar. From up here, the city spreads below like a map. You can see the East River, the ships in the harbour, the buildings of Brooklyn across the water. The morning sun is hitting the tops of buildings below you, leaving the streets still in shadow. You can hear the city, trolley bells, horse hooves on cobblestones, the general murmur of thousands of people beginning their day. But up here, above it all, there is mostly just wind and the sound of steel being worked on other levels. After breakfast, the riveting begins. This is the loudest, most violent part of the work. A portable forge on the work platform heats rivets until they glow orange-white. The heater pulls a glowing rivet from the forge with tongs and tosses it through the air to the catcher, who catches it in a metal cone. The catcher knocks the rivet into the connection hole, and then 2 men with pneumatic tools compress it so tightly that it becomes stronger than the steel itself. The sound is incredible. The pneumatic hammer makes a rapid tack, 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 tack that you feel in your chest, in your bones, in your skull. Even with cloth stuffed in your ears, the noise is overwhelming. The heat from the forge makes this corner of the platform sweltering. Despite the cold wind, the smell is of hot metal and coal smoke, sharp and metallic. You work through the morning, beam after beam, rivet after rivet. The rhythm becomes almost meditative despite the danger. There is satisfaction in seeing each piece lock into place, in knowing that this structure will stand for generations, will outlast you, will be part of New York long after you are dust. At noon you descend. Some men eat lunch on the steel, but you prefer to come down to feel solid ground beneath your feet at least once during the day. The climb down is harder than the climb up. You cannot see where you are placing your feet, must feel for each beam and column, must trust your memory of the route. On the street, you buy a hot sausage from a cart, stand on the sidewalk eating it, looking up at what you are building. From down here, the steel skeleton is beginning to suggest the building's final shape. White terracotta will eventually cover this naked steel, will make it beautiful, will transform it into the Gothic tower that the architect designed. But right now, it is just steel, raw and honest, showing its bones. After lunch, you climb again. The afternoon is the same as the morning. Beams arriving, being positioned, being riveted. Your hands are blistered despite the gloves. Your shoulders ache. Your ears ring from the pneumatic hammers. But you feel good. You feel the particular satisfaction of hard physical work, of building something permanent and real. As the sun sets, you make your final descent. You collect your pay at the site office, $1.50 for the day. You give half to your boarding house where you rent a bed in a room shared with 5 other men. You save a quarter. The rest you spend on dinner and beer. This is your life. Day after day, week after week, through spring and summer and fall and into winter. The building rises. You climb higher as new levels are added. 30 floors, 40 floors, 50 floors. The view gets more spectacular. The wind gets stronger. The danger never diminishes. In October, Big Mike falls. You are working 2 beams away when it happens. He steps onto a beam that has not been bolted properly, just resting in place. The beam shifts under his weight. He loses his balance, grabs for a column, misses. And then he is falling, tumbling through the air, his body getting smaller and smaller until it hits the street, 47 stories below. You do not see the impact. You are too far above, but you hear the sound that goes through the crew, the collective intake of breath, the moment of silence. Work stops for the rest of the day. Big Mike's body is removed, will be sent back to Newfoundland for burial. The next morning, you are back at work. There is always work. There is always another beam to place. By March 1913, the steel frame reaches the 60th floor. An American flag is raised at the peak for the topping out ceremony. The construction workers gather for a photograph. Dozens of men sitting on steel beams, standing on columns, all of you having just built the tallest structure in the world. Frank Woolworth visits for the ceremony, short and round and overdressed in his wool coat and top hat. He looks uncomfortable with the height and the cold. He is the man who paid for this building. Who will put his name on it? Who will be remembered? You are the man who built it. Who will be forgotten? Both were necessary. Neither could have done it alone. The building opens in April 1913. President Wilson presses a button in Washington that illuminates 80,000 lights, making the white terracotta glow in the darkness, turning the building into a tower of light visible for miles. Newspapers call it the Cathedral of Commerce. Tourists pay to ride to the observation deck, to see the city from higher than humans have ever stood. For you, the opening means nothing, except that the work is finished, and you need to find the next job. You walk past the completed building on your way to another construction site. You look up at the white terracotta gleaming, the Gothic details crisp against the sky, and you remember the naked steel, the cold mornings, Big Mike falling. The building stands. You helped build it. Your name appears nowhere on it. But you know. You are now Tony Rosselli, though you were Antonia Rosselli when you were born in Calabria in 1904. You came to New York in 1920, 16 years old, leaving behind poverty and limited prospects for the promise of America. Like James O'Rourke before you, like thousands of Italian immigrants, you found work as an ironworker because the pay was good and because Americans would not do this work, would not take these risks. By 1929, you have 9 years of experience. You have worked on a dozen buildings, have learned to trust your balance, to move across narrow steel without thinking about the drop, to do in your sleep what would terrify most people awake. You are 25 years old and very good at what you do. The Chrysler building is different from other jobs. The architect, William Van Allen, is obsessed with making this the tallest building in the world. He is competing with another architect, Craig Severance, who is building the Bank of Manhattan at 40 Wall Street. They are former partners turned bitter rivals, and the competition has become personal, has become about ego and pride more than practical concerns. You are working in the crown of the Chrysler building, 65 stories above the street, installing the decorative stainless steel cladding that will make this building instantly recognizable. The crown is Van Allen's masterpiece, Art Deco triangular windows that form arches of gleaming steel, creating a crown that looks like it belongs on a rocket ship or a cathedral from the future. The work is delicate, nothing like the brutal efficiency of placing structural beams. Each stainless steel panel must be fitted precisely, must be secured with special fasteners, must be positioned so that the curved surfaces align perfectly. You work with gloves off despite the cold because you need to feel the metal, need to sense when the fit is right. From up here at the crown level, the view is beyond anything you imagined. You can see all 5 boroughs, can see the Atlantic Ocean as a line at the horizon, can see weather systems moving in from hundreds of miles away. On clear days, you feel like you can see forever, like you are standing at the edge of the world. But you are not here for the view. You are here because there is a secret being kept, and you are part of it. Inside the fire shaft at the centre of the building, hidden from everyone except the construction crew, a massive stainless steel spire is being assembled. This spire is 185 feet tall, made of sections that bolt together, and it will be hoisted through the top of the building in a single operation, adding height that no one outside the crew knows about. Severance thinks he has won. His building at 40 Wall Street topped out at 927 feet in October, making it briefly the tallest in the world. He thinks the Chrysler building will be shorter. Van Allen has encouraged this belief, has leaked false information about the Yi Damit Chrysler Building's height. The spire is his secret weapon. On October 23rd, 1929, the operation begins. You are part of the crew that will guide the spire as it rises. The base section of the spire is positioned inside the fire shaft. You stand on it, along with 3 other ironworkers, as the crane operator begins to lift. The sensation is unlike anything you have experienced. You are standing on steel that is rising through the building, through empty vertical space that will eventually be the fire shaft, and then suddenly you are emerging through the top of the building into open air. The city spreads below you in every direction. The wind hits you like a physical force. You are higher than any building around you, standing on steel suspended by a crane, rising into the sky. The spire sections are bolted together as they rise. You work with wrenches, tightening bolts, making sure each connection is solid. The operation takes 90 minutes. When it is finished, the Chrysler Building's spire reaches 1,046 feet into the sky, surpassing 40 Wall Street by over 100 feet. You stand at the very top of the spire when the last bolt is tightened, balanced on steel at the highest point in New York City. For a few moments before you descend, you are the highest human being in the world. The sensation is indescribable. Terror and exhilaration mixed together, the wind trying to pluck you off your perch. The city so far below it looks like a model, like something unreal. Van Allen has won. Severance is furious, humiliated. But the victory is brief because everyone knows that an even taller building's already under construction. The Empire State Building, designed from the beginning to be the world's tallest, to end all debate. But for now, for a few months, the Chrysler Building is supreme, and you are there at its highest point. You helped place that spire. You stood where no one had ever stood before. The Great Depression has begun. The stock market crashed in October 1929, just days after you helped install the Chrysler Building's spire. The economy is collapsing, banks are failing, businesses are closing, men who had jobs are suddenly unemployed, standing in breadlines desperate for any work. But you still have work because the Empire State Building is being built, and it is being built fast. The construction company, Starrett Brothers and Deacon, has organised this project with military precision. They are building at a rate of 4.5 stories per week, faster than any skyscraper has ever risen. The speed is partly about efficiency, partly about beating the depression, getting the building finished and rented before the economy gets even worse. You work on the 75th floor in March 1931. The Empire State Building has already surpassed the Chrysler Building. You are now working higher than you stood on the Chrysler Spire, higher than any permanent structure has ever risen. The building will eventually reach 1,250 feet, with a decorative spire bringing the total to 1,454 feet. The pace is exhausting. You arrive before dawn, climb to your work level, and work until dusk. Trucks arrive in a continuous stream, delivering pre-cut steel beams, each one numbered, each one designed to fit a specific location. Cranes lift them, you bolt them in place. Riveters follow immediately, making the connections permanent. The building grows like something alive, like it is organic rather than manufactured. Up here on the 75th floor, the wind is fierce and constant. It gusts unpredictably, sometimes threatening to knock you off balance. You learn to feel the wind, to sense when a strong gust is coming, to brace yourself or grab something fixed. You learn to trust your body, to move without thinking, to work on 8-inch beams as naturally as you walk on solid ground. The danger is not diminished, but you have learned to live with it. You know 6 men who have died on this job, fallen, crushed, killed in the 100 ways that construction can kill. But thousands of men are working here, and the death rate, while terrible, is actually lower than on earlier buildings. Hard hats are now required. Safety nets catch some falls. The culture is changing, recognising that dead workers cannot build buildings. You eat lunch on the steel, 75 stories up, unwrapping a sandwich made by your wife that morning, drinking coffee from a thermos. Other ironworkers sit nearby, legs dangling over the side, talking and laughing, the height no longer registering as danger. You have been working at these heights for so long that being on the 75th floor feels almost normal, almost safe. Almost. The man next to you, a Canadian named Jack, is eating sardines straight from the tin. The smell is powerful in the cold air. He offers you one. You decline. Stick to your sandwich. Jacques talks about going home after this job, back to Montreal, buying a house with the money he has saved. He talks about finding safer work, maybe carpentry, something where a moment's inattention does not mean death. You wonder if you will do the same someday. You are 27 now. How many more years can you do this work? Connolly, your old foreman from the Woolworth job, is still working, but he is slowing down, is taking ground-level work now, coordinating materials instead of climbing. Everyone who does this work long enough either dies or retires. There is no middle ground. In April 1931, the steel frame tops out. The topping out ceremony is muted, subdued by the Depression. But for you and the other workers, there is pride. You built the tallest building in the world. You stood at the top of it when it was just steel and sky. You helped create something that will stand for generations, that will define New York for decades to come. The Empire State Building opens on May 1st, 1931, just 13 months after construction began. President Hoover presses a button in Washington, and the lights come on in a building so tall it seems impossible. But the economy is in ruins. The building cannot find tenants. Its offices sit empty, earning it the cruel nickname, the Empty State Building. But the building becomes a symbol. It represents American ambition, American engineering, American determination to build higher than anyone else. King Kong will climb it in a movie. It will appear in countless photographs, paintings, newsreels. It will become the image people worldwide associate with New York, with America itself. For you, the symbolism means less than the paycheck. You are working on another building now, another tower, because the building never stops even during the Depression. There is always steel to be placed, always heights to be climbed, always danger to be faced for good pay. You do not know that you will work for another 25 years, that you will build dozens more buildings, that you will see New York's skyline transform again and again. You do not know that you will retire alive in 1955, having survived a profession that killed so many of your friends. You do not know that you will die in your bed in Brooklyn in 1985, at the age of 81, having outlived nearly everyone you worked with. But that is decades away. Right now in 1931, you are young and strong and skilled, and you are climbing toward another top, always building, always rising, always reaching for the sky. You are Rosa Gianelli, and you have never climbed a steel beam in your life. You have never worked at the heights where men like James O'Rourke and Tony Rosselli earned their pay. But you live in the city they built, in the shadows of the towers they erected, and your experience of New York is just as much a part of its story as theirs. You live on the Lower East Side, in a tenement building on Orchard Street, 5 stories tall, built in 1890, designed to pack as many people as possible into as little space as possible. Your apartment is 3 rooms on the 4th floor, a kitchen with a coal stove, a front room with 2 windows facing the street, and a bedroom that has no windows at all, no source of light or air except what comes through the kitchen. You share these 3 rooms with your husband Carlo, your 3 children, and your husband's widowed mother, 7 people in 3 rooms. This is normal. The family across the hall has 9 people in the same size apartment. The family below has 11. The building is designed around 2 air shafts, narrow vertical spaces between buildings that are supposed to provide light and ventilation to the interior rooms. But these shafts are so narrow, just a few feet wide, that they provide almost no light and mainly serve as vertical garbage chutes, where residents throw trash and where rats live and breed. The smell from the air shafts is constant, overwhelming in summer. Garbage and sewage and cooking, and too many human bodies in too little space. Your day begins before dawn. You wake in, the windowless bedroom, the air close and stale, the sounds of your children breathing in the darkness. You dress quietly, not wanting to wake them yet, and move into the kitchen where the coal stove has gone cold during the night. You rebuild the fire, feeding it coal from the bucket you filled yesterday. The coal is expensive and you use it sparingly, banking the fire at night to make it last. But mornings are cold, and you need heat to cook breakfast, to warm water for washing. As the fire comes to life, you begin to hear the building wake around you, footsteps overhead as someone gets up, voices through the thin walls, a married couple arguing, a baby crying somewhere, the sound carrying through the building. A cough harsh and wet from the apartment next door, the old man who's been sick all winter, whose cough sounds like death approaching. You make breakfast, bread and coffee for the adults, milk and bread for the children if there is milk, just bread if there is not. Carlo eats quickly, barely speaking, and leaves for work. He is a labourer, hauling boxes at a warehouse, work that breaks his back for $1 a day. Some days there is work, some days there is not. On the days without work, he stands with other men at the hiring hall, hoping to be chosen, coming home empty-handed more often than not. Your mother-in-law, Maria, watches the youngest child while you take the 2 older ones to school. You walk through streets already crowded with pushcart vendors, with women shopping for the day's food, with men going to work, with the noise and smell and bustle of the Lower East Side. The school is overcrowded, classes of 50 children taught by exhausted teachers. But you insist your children go, every day, because you want them to learn English properly, to learn to read and write, to have chances you never had. You came from Italy at 18, married at 19, had your first child at 20. You speak Italian at home, broken English on the street, can read only a little, write barely at all. Your children will be American in a way you never can be, and that is what you want for them. After leaving the children at school, you return to the apartment and begin the work of the day. Monday is washing, and you haul water from the single tap on the first floor, carrying heavy buckets up 4 flights of stairs, filling the washtub in the kitchen, heating water on the stove, scrubbing clothes by hand against a washboard until your knuckles are raw. The wet clothes you hang on lines strung across the air shaft, where they will dry slowly in the dim light and poor ventilation, smelling vaguely of garbage because everything near the air shaft smells of garbage. Tuesday through Friday, you work in a garment factory 6 blocks away, sewing shirtwaists for 10 hours a day, in a building where the windows are kept closed to prevent workers from stealing fabric, where the air is filled with lint and dust, where the only break is 30 minutes for lunch. You bring bread from home, eat it at your sewing machine, barely pausing in your work because you are paid by the piece, not by the hour. And the faster you sew, the more you earn. The work is monotonous, numbing, your fingers moving automatically, guiding fabric under the needle, over and over and over. Your eyes ache from the close work. Your back hurts from sitting hunched over the machine. But you earn $5 a week, and that $5 is the difference between your family eating or not eating, between paying the rent or being evicted. You remember the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911. Remember standing in the street as the building burned, as girls jumped from the upper floors rather than burn, their bodies smashing on the pavement, their screams echoing off the buildings. You were 18 then, newly arrived in New York, and the fire terrified you, made you understand that this city could kill you as easily as it could offer you opportunity. The factory where you work now has fire escapes, but they are rusty and one of them's blocked by boxes. The doors lock from the outside during work hours to prevent workers from leaving early. If there were a fire, you might die, but you need the work, need the $5 a week, so you push the fear down and keep sewing. Saturday is shopping day. You walk through the markets on Hester Street, comparing prices, haggling with vendors, stretching your money as far as it will go. You buy day-old bread for half price. You buy vegetables that are bruised or wilting, fish that are no longer quite fresh, meat scraps that the butcher will sell cheap if you come late in the day. You are an expert at making a little go a long way, at feeding 7 people on almost nothing. Sunday is the only day of rest. You go to church in the morning, Mass in Italian at the parish church, where the priest preaches about suffering and patience, and the rewards that await the faithful in heaven. You are not sure you believe in heaven anymore, but you go to church anyway. Because it is what you do, because the community gathers there, because for 1 hour a week you can sit and not work, and not think about the endless struggle to survive. Sunday afternoon, if the weather is good, you take the children to the park. Not Central Park, that is too far, too much of a journey, but the small park a few blocks away, where there is grass and a few trees, and room for children to run. Your children play while you sit on a bench with other women, all of you tired, all of you worn down by the work and the poverty and the constant anxiety about money. You look up at the skyline, at the towers rising in lower Manhattan, at the Woolworth Building gleaming white in the distance. You know vaguely that men worked at terrible heights to build those towers, that men died building them, but they seem remote from your life, irrelevant to your concerns. Those buildings are for rich people, for corporations, for businesses. They have nothing to do with you and your family, with your 3 rooms on Orchard Street, with your struggle to feed your children and pay the rent and survive one more week. But you are part of New York's story too. The men who built the towers needed places to live, needed wives who washed their clothes and cooked their food and raised their children. The corporations that filled the towers needed workers like you, sewing clothes, making goods, providing the labour that kept the economy running. The towers could not exist without the tenements, without the immigrants, without the women who worked for pennies and raised children in 3-room apartments, and somehow survived. You will live in this tenement for another 15 years until 1940, when your husband will finally save enough money to move your family to a small house in Brooklyn. Your children will grow up, will get better jobs than you and Carlo had, will move further from the poverty of the Lower East Side. Your oldest son will fight in World War II, will come home alive, will use the GI Bill to go to college, will become a teacher. Your daughter will marry an accountant, will move to Queens, will live in a house with a yard and enough rooms for everyone. But that is years away. Right now in 1925, you are 30 years old and you feel 50. Your hands are rough from washing and sewing. Your back aches constantly. Your teeth are going bad from poor nutrition. You are worn down by the work and the worry and the endless pressure of poverty. But you survive. You feed your children. You keep your family together. And in your own way, in your invisibility and your struggle and your endurance, you are as much a part of building New York as the ironworkers who climbed the steel and the architects who designed the towers. You are the foundation, the base, the street level that makes everything else possible. As you drift towards sleep tonight, carry these stories with you. James O'Rourke balancing on steel 8 inches wide, 23 stories above the street, his breath visible in the cold air, placing beams that will stand for generations. Tony Rosselli standing on the Chrysler Building's spire as it rose through the building into open air, higher than anyone had ever stood, the city spread below like a map. Rosa Gianelli in her 3-room tenement, washing clothes and sewing shirts and raising children in the shadows of the towers. These are the people who built New York, not the architects whose names appear on plaques, not the businessmen whose wealth paid for construction, but the workers, immigrant men who climbed into the sky, immigrant women who laboured in factories and tenements, all of them risking and sacrificing and enduring to create the vertical city. The towers still stand. The Woolworth Building, no longer the tallest but still beautiful, with its Gothic details and white terracotta. The Chrysler Building, still instantly recognisable with its art. Deco crown. The Empire State Building, no longer the world's tallest but still the symbol of New York. Still the building that King Kong climbed. Still the image that comes to mind when people around the world think of American ambition. But the names of the men who built them are mostly lost. James O'Rourke is a composite, a representation of thousands of Irish ironworkers whose individual stories were never recorded. Tony Rosselli is the same, standing in for countless Italian workers. Rosa Gianelli is every immigrant woman who raised a family in impossible conditions, whose work was invisible but essential. They built the sky. They created the skyline that defines New York, that appears in a million photographs, that has become one of the most famous cityscapes in the world. They did it for pay that seems laughable now, under conditions that would be illegal today, with risks that we would consider insane. And they did it knowing that they would not be remembered, that the buildings would stand but their names would be forgotten. But we remember them now. We honour them by understanding what they did, what they risked, what they built. The towers are their monument, even if their names appear nowhere on them. Every rivet, every beam, every level of every building. These are the marks they left, the proof that they existed, the evidence that they mattered. Sleep well, knowing that every time you see a photograph of the New York skyline, you are looking at the work of immigrants who came to America with nothing, who took the most dangerous jobs available, who climbed into the sky and built a city. Their courage, their skill, their sacrifice. These are the true foundation of New York, more important than steel or stone, more lasting than any building. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the sky. And now we continue to our next story. We have just climbed into the sky, building New York's towers beam by beam, rivet by rivet, hundreds of feet above the streets. We felt the wind at those impossible heights, balanced on steel 8 inches wide, and built upward toward the clouds. But New York was not only built upward, it was also built downward, carved into the earth beneath the streets, tunneled through rock and mud, and underground rivers, to create another city entirely. A city of darkness and compressed air and constant danger, where men called sandhogs dug through the earth with nothing but their courage and their desperation to create the veins that would carry millions of people through Manhattan's depths. Tonight we descend. We leave the sky and enter the earth. We become sandhogs, the men who built New York's subway system, who worked in conditions so extreme that many did not survive, who dug through solid rock and underwater mud to create 722 miles of tunnel that would transform New York from a collection of separate neighborhoods into a unified city. Close your eyes and imagine that you are standing in absolute darkness 60 feet below the streets of Manhattan. The air is thick, compressed to twice normal pressure, so dense it feels like breathing soup. Your ears ache constantly from the pressure. Your head throbs. Around you, other men are swinging pickaxes, drilling holes for dynamite, hauling away tons of rock and mud in the suffocating heat and darkness. This is the work that made the modern city possible. Not the glamorous towers above, but the invisible tunnels below. Not the architecture that tourists photograph, but the infrastructure that no one sees, carved by men whose names were never recorded, who died in darkness so that millions could travel in light. Let us dig. Let us descend into the earth and experience what it costs to build the arteries beneath New York's streets. You are Patrick Murphy, and you are standing at the bottom of a wooden shaft 60 feet below Broadway and Canal Street. It is February 1902, and you are helping to dig what will become the first subway tunnel in New York City. You were born in County Mayo, Ireland, in 1878, and you came to New York in 1897 when you were 19. You found work on the docks, then digging water tunnels, then finally here, on the subway contract, because it pays $3 a day, double what most labourers earn. The pay is good because the work can kill you in a dozen different ways. The shaft you descended is a temporary access point, a vertical tunnel lined with timber, with a ladder bolted to one side and a steam-powered hoist for hauling materials up and debris down. You climb down that ladder in darkness, your miner's lamp casting weak light on the wet wooden walls, water dripping constantly from above. Now you stand in a horizontal tunnel being carved through Manhattan schist, the same bedrock that supports the skyscrapers above. But here, 60 feet down, that rock is an enemy to be conquered with steel and dynamite and the strength of your back. The tunnel is 8 feet high and 12 feet wide, just large enough for the subway trains that will eventually run through it. Right now, it is raw rock face at one end, rough carved tunnel stretching back into darkness at the other. The air is thick with rock dust and the smoke from miners' lamps. Water seeps constantly from the ceiling and walls, pooling on the rough floor, soaking through your boots. Your crew consists of 12 men, 6 drillers, including yourself, who bore holes into the rock face for the dynamite charges, 2 blasters who pack the holes with dynamite and set the fuses, 4 muckers who haul away the broken rock after each blast. All of you are Irish or Italian, immigrants who came to America seeking opportunity and found this: darkness, danger, wages earned one day at a time, because there is no guarantee you will survive to see tomorrow. The work has a rhythm, brutal and exhausting. First, the drilling. You hold a long steel drill against the rock face, while your partner Seamus swings a 12-pound sledgehammer, striking the drill head again and again, driving it deeper into the stone. After each strike, you rotate the drill slightly so that the hole cuts cleanly. The sound is deafening. Metal on metal, the ring echoing off the tunnel walls, making your head ache, making your ears ring even through the cloth you've stuffed in them. You drill for hours, boring holes in a pattern across the rock face, some holes angled down, some straight in, some angled up, creating a geometry that will allow the dynamite to break the rock efficiently. Your arms burn with exhaustion. Your hands are blistered even through your leather gloves. The drill becomes slippery with water and rock dust, and you must constantly wipe it to maintain your grip. When the drilling is finished, everyone evacuates the tunnel except the blasters. You climb back up the shaft to street level, emerging into daylight that hurts your eyes after hours in the darkness. You eat lunch on the sidewalk, bread and cheese and cold tea from a jar, while pedestrians walk past, completely unaware that beneath their feet, men are about to detonate dynamite. The blast is muffled by 60 feet of earth, but you feel it through the ground, a thump that makes the street tremble slightly. You wait 30 minutes for the smoke and dust to clear, then descend again into the darkness. The tunnel face has changed. Where there was solid rock before, now there is rubble. Tons of broken stone, some pieces small as your fist, others the size of a barrel, all of it needing to be removed before the next round of drilling can begin. You become a mucker now, switching roles as the work demands. You shovel broken rock into a wooden cart mounted on temporary rails. When the cart is full, you and another man push it back through the tunnel to the shaft, where it is hoisted to the surface. You return with the empty cart and fill it again, and again, and again, for hours until every piece of broken rock has been removed and the tunnel has advanced another 6 feet into the earth. This is the work. Drill, blast, muck. Drill, blast, muck. 6 feet of progress on a good day. 4 feet if the rock is particularly hard or if there is too much water. Sometimes no progress at all, if the roof collapses, or if water breaks through, or if the dynamite misfires and kills someone. You work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. You arrive in darkness and leave in darkness, spending your days underground, breathing rock dust, soaking in cold water. Always aware that the ceiling above you is held up only by wooden timbers, that the rock wants to crush you, that the earth does not care whether you live or die. The worst part is not the darkness, or the cold, or the exhaustion. The worst part is the fear that never entirely leaves you. Fear that the next blast will bring down the tunnel roof. Fear that you will strike an underground river and drown in the flood. Fear that the ladder in the shaft will break while you are climbing and you will fall 60 feet onto stone. Fear that something will happen, one of the 100 possible disasters. And you will die down here in the darkness, buried under tons of rock, and your body might never be recovered. In March it happens to someone else, and you witness it. His name is Giovanni Rosselli, an Italian who speaks almost no English, a digger like yourself. The blast goes off as planned, but something in the rock above is weakened. As the crew returns to begin mucking, there is a cracking sound, sharp and loud even in the cacophony of the tunnel. Everyone freezes. You look up and see a fracture spreading across the ceiling, see a timber beam beginning to bow under impossible weight. "Run!" someone shouts, and everyone runs back toward the shaft. But Giovanni is closest to the rock face, farthest from safety. He runs, but the rock is faster. The ceiling comes down in a roar of stone and dust. Not the entire tunnel, just a section, maybe 15 feet of collapse. When the dust clears, Giovanni is buried. You can see one of his hands extending from the rubble, still moving, grasping at nothing. The crew digs frantically, throwing rocks aside with bare hands, but there are tons of stone. It takes 2 hours to reach him. When you finally pull him free, he is dead, crushed, his body broken in ways you cannot look at for long. Work stops for the rest of the day. Giovanni's body is hauled to the surface. His wife arrives, a young woman with a baby, and her screams echo off the buildings. She screams in Italian, words you do not understand but whose meaning is universal. Grief, rage, the terrible knowledge that her husband died in darkness so that rich men could travel underground in comfort. The next morning, you descend into the tunnel again. The collapsed section has been cleared, new timbers installed, and the work continues. There is always work. There is always another tunnel to dig. By December 1902, your section of tunnel has advanced half a mile. You can now walk underground from Canal Street almost to Grand Street, through passages carved entirely by hand labour, by men with drills and dynamite and the willingness to work where most men would not go. But the tunnel is still just a hole in the ground. For it to become a subway, other workers must follow. Track layers to install the rails, electricians to string the power lines, finishers to build the platforms and install the tile work that will make the stations beautiful. Your work is invisible, the rough preparation that makes everything else possible. You will work on the subway construction for another 2 years, until 1904, when the first line opens from City Hall to 145th Street. You will ride that first train as a passenger on opening day, sitting in a bright electric car, travelling in minutes through tunnels that took years to dig. And you will feel something complex, pride that you helped build this, anger that your work is invisible, satisfaction that the thing exists, bitterness that Giovanni Rossetti and the others who died will never be remembered. But that is 2 years away. Right now, in February 1902, you are 60 feet underground in darkness, swinging a sledgehammer, drilling holes in rock, earning $3 a day, trying not to think about the weight of earth above you or the many ways you could die before the day ends. You are now Antonio Luca, and you are experiencing something far worse than digging through rock. You are inside a caisson, a massive iron box at the bottom of the East River, where the pressure is so extreme it is slowly destroying your body. It is 1915, and you are working on the tunnel that will carry subway trains under the East River, connecting Manhattan to Brooklyn. This tunnel cannot be dug from above like the first subway lines. It must be bored through mud and silt under the river itself, and the only way to do this is with caissons, pressurized chambers that keep the water out while men dig beneath the riverbed. You were born in Calabria, Italy, in 1891. You came to New York in 1910, found work as a sandhog, and for 5 years you dug tunnels under Manhattan streets. That work was dangerous, but it was nothing compared to this. The caisson is a rectangular, iron chamber, 30 feet wide, 60 feet long, 10 feet high. It is open at the bottom, like an upside-down box pressed into the riverbed. The only thing keeping the river from flooding in is compressed air. Air pumped in at such high pressure that it pushes the water back, creating a bubble of breathable space beneath the river. You enter the caisson through an airlock, a small chamber with 2 doors. You climb into the airlock with 3 other workers, seal the lower door, and wait while compressed air is pumped in. Your ears begin to ache immediately. The pressure builds and builds until you feel like your head will explode. You have learned to hold your nose and blow, forcing air through your ear passages, equalizing the pressure, but it is never entirely comfortable. When the pressure in the airlock matches the pressure in the caisson, the upper door opens and you climb down a ladder into the working chamber. The air here is so dense it feels like breathing underwater. Your voice sounds strange, higher pitched. Moving your arms feels like pushing through invisible molasses. The air is hot and humid, thick with the smell of mud and sweat, and the particular smell of compressed air. Clean and metallic and wrong. The bottom of the caisson is open to the riverbed. You stand on mud 70 feet below the river surface, with millions of gallons of water held back only by air pressure. If that pressure drops even slightly, water will come rushing in. If it drops too quickly, the entire caisson will flood, and everyone inside will drown before they can reach the airlock. Your job is to dig. You shovel mud into buckets that are hauled up through shafts to the surface. You dig out rocks. You clear away debris. Slowly, painfully, the caisson sinks deeper into the riverbed as the mud beneath it is removed. Eventually, it will reach solid bedrock, and then workers above will fill it with concrete, creating a foundation for the tunnel that will be built on top. The work is brutal. You shovel mud for 4 hours straight. That is the maximum shift length in the caisson, because working longer in compressed air is too dangerous. But even 4 hours feels like forever. The heat is suffocating. Your muscles ache from working against the air pressure. Your head throbs constantly. Your ears ring. You taste blood in your mouth from the pressure on your sinuses. And always there is fear. Fear that the compressed air pumps will fail. Fear that the caisson will crack. Fear that you will develop caisson disease. The illness that strikes workers when they return to normal air pressure too quickly. The danger is invisible and insidious. When you work in compressed air, nitrogen from the air dissolves in your blood. If you return to normal pressure too slowly, the nitrogen comes out of solution gradually, and you breathe it out. But if you come up too quickly, the nitrogen forms bubbles in your blood and tissues, like opening a bottle of champagne. These bubbles can paralyze you, can cause agonizing joint pain, can kill you. The company provides a decompression chamber, a smaller airlock where you are supposed to sit for 30 minutes after your shift, letting your body adjust slowly to normal pressure. But 30 minutes is unpaid time, and you need every hour of wages you can get. Some men skip the decompression, taking their chances, gambling that they will not be the ones who get the bends. In April, your friend Marco skips decompression. One time too many. He comes up from the caisson after a shift, claims he feels fine, walks toward the street. 20 feet from the caisson entrance, he collapses. You run to him and find him convulsing on the ground. foam coming from his mouth, his eyes rolled back. Other workers carry him to the medical shack. The company doctor examines him quickly. "Caisson disease," he says. "Severe case. Get him to the hospital." But Marco never makes it to the hospital. He dies in the ambulance, his body destroyed by nitrogen bubbles in his brain and lungs. He is 24 years old. He has been in America for 3 years. He sent money back to his family in Sicily every month, and now someone will have to write them a letter explaining that he died digging a hole under a river, that his body is broken, that there will be no more money coming. After Marco dies, you become religious about decompression. Every shift, no matter how tired you are, no matter how much you want to get home, you sit in the decompression chamber for the full 30 minutes. You watch the pressure gauge slowly drop. You feel your ears pop and pop and pop as the pressure equalizes. You taste the blood in your mouth. And you think about Marco, about Giovanni Rossetti from your early days digging the first tunnels, about all the men whose bodies are buried in the infrastructure of New York. The caisson work continues through 1915 and into 1916. Slowly, painfully, the foundation for the East River Tunnel is built. You work your 4-hour shifts, decompress for 30 minutes, go home to your small apartment in Brooklyn, eat dinner with your wife, and try not to think about the pressure, the darkness, the ways you could die tomorrow. Your wife Lucia knows the work is killing you. She sees you come home with nosebleeds from the pressure. She hears you gasping in your sleep, fighting for air in your dreams. She begs you to find other work, safer work, but what else can you do? You speak limited English. You have no skills except digging, and the subway pays $3.50 a day, more than any other labour you could find. Just until we save enough, you tell her. Just another year or two, and we will have enough money to buy a house, to bring my parents from Italy, to give our children a better life. She does not argue, but her eyes tell you she knows the truth, that men who work in caissons do not live long enough to enjoy the money they earn, that the pressure and the nitrogen and the constant stress on the body extract a price that cannot be repaid. In August 1916, the caisson finally reaches bedrock. The digging stops. Concrete is poured, filling the chamber, creating the foundation. Your work here is finished. The tunnel will be built on top of this foundation by other workers, but you will not be among them. You have spent 18 months working in compressed air, and you have survived, which makes you lucky. But you do not feel lucky. Your joints ache constantly now, even when you are not working. Your hearing is damaged from the pressure. You have nightmares about drowning, about the caisson flooding, about being trapped underwater with no way to reach the surface. You are 25 years old, and you feel 50. The subway tunnel under the East River opens in 1918. You ride through it on opening day, sitting in a bright electric car, travelling underwater that once pressed down on you with killing force. The other passengers talk excitedly about the engineering marvel, about how wonderful it is to travel from Manhattan to Brooklyn in minutes. You say nothing. You look at the curved tunnel walls and remember the caisson, the pressure, Marco convulsing on the ground. You remember the mud and the darkness and the constant fear. And you think about all the men whose bodies were broken to build this tunnel, whose names will never appear on any plaque, who died so that strangers could travel under the river in comfort. You are still Antonio Luca, but you are older now, and you have become a walking foreman on the new subway lines being built in the 1920s. You survived the caisson work, though your body bears the scars. Your hearing is poor, your joints ache in cold weather, and you developed a slight limp from undiagnosed nerve damage caused by working in compressed air. It is 1925, and the subway system is expanding rapidly. The original 1904 line was just the beginning. Now there are plans for hundreds of miles of new tunnels, connecting all 5 boroughs, creating a transportation network that will make New York the most accessible city in the world. You walk through a tunnel, being dug under Lexington Avenue, in Manhattan. This tunnel is deeper than the first subway lines, 80 feet below the surface, carved through solid rock. The technology has improved since 1902. There are electric drilling machines now, mounted on wheeled platforms that can drill multiple holes simultaneously. There are better ventilation systems, pumping fresh air into the tunnels and removing the dust and exhaust. There are electric lights strung along the ceiling, replacing the weak miners' lamps. But the fundamental work is the same. Men drill holes in rock. Men pack those holes with dynamite. Men haul away tons of broken stone. Men die when something goes wrong. You stop to watch a drilling crew. The electric drill screams as it bores into the rock, throwing off sparks and rock dust. The operator is a young Italian man, maybe 20 years old, new to the work. He holds the drill too tensely, fighting it instead of guiding it. You can see he is going to make a mistake. "Giuseppe!" you shout over the noise of the drill. "You hold it too tight. Let the machine do the work." He looks at you, nods, adjusts his grip. The drill immediately runs smoother, bites deeper into the rock. You nod approval and move on. This is your job now. Walking the tunnels, checking on crews, making sure the work is being done safely and efficiently. You do not drill or blast or muck anymore. Your body cannot handle that work. But you know these tunnels better than almost anyone. Know what can go wrong, know how to read the signs that the rock is unstable, or that water is nearby, or that a cave-in is about to happen. The pay is better now. $5 a day as a foreman. You have saved enough to move your family to a small house in Brooklyn, with 3 bedrooms and a yard where your children can play. Your oldest daughter is 10, and she speaks English without an accent, reads books from the library, dreams of becoming a teacher. Your son is 8, and he wants to be anything except a sandhog. This makes you proud and sad at the same time. You walk deeper into the tunnel, checking the progress. This section is nearing completion. The drilling and blasting are finished, and now the finishing crews are installing the infrastructure. Track layers are bolting rails to wooden ties embedded in concrete. Electricians are stringing the third rail that will carry 600 volts of direct current to power the trains. Tile workers are covering the walls with white ceramic tiles, creating the clean, bright aesthetic that the city wants for its modern subway stations. You stop to examine a section of tile work in what will become a station platform. The tiles are white with a coloured border, different colours for each station so that passengers who cannot read English can still navigate by colour. This station will be blue. The one before it was green. The system is simple and elegant. The tile worker notices you watching. "You like?" he asks. He is Italian like you, but from the north, Milano. His accent is different from your Calabrian one. "Beautiful," you say in Italian. "Like a palazzo." He laughs. "A palazzo 80 feet underground. Who would have imagined?" You talk for a few minutes about the old country, about New York, about the work. He's been in America for only 2 years and everything still amazes him. The electric lights, the tall buildings, the subway itself. You remember feeling that amazement once before the work wore it away, before you saw what it cost to build these marvels. As you prepare to leave, there is a shout from deeper in the tunnel, then the sound you have learned to fear, a deep crack, like thunder underground followed by rushing water. Your body moves before your mind can process. "Out!" you scream. "Everybody out! Water break!" The workers drop their tools and run toward the nearest exit shaft. You run with them but also count, making sure everyone is moving, that no one is left behind. The sound of water gets louder, a roar now, and you can feel wetness on your face, spray from the flood racing through the tunnel. You reach the shaft and push the younger workers up the ladder first. Climb fast! Water is ankle deep now, rising quickly. The last worker goes up, and you follow, climbing as fast as your aging body can manage. Below you, the water continues to rise, filling the tunnel you were just standing in. You emerge at street level, gasping, soaking wet. A crowd has gathered around the shaft entrance. Other workers are counting heads, making sure everyone got out. One of the foremen approaches you. "Antonio, you okay?" "Yes, everyone is out?" "Everyone, thanks to you. You moved fast." You nod, but inside you are shaking. That was close. If you had been 50 feet deeper in the tunnel, if you had not heard the water break immediately, if the workers had hesitated even 30 seconds longer, some of them would have drowned. The subway officials arrive, begin planning how to pump out the tunnel, how to seal the water source, how long it will take to repair the damage. Days or weeks of work lost, thousands of dollars in damage. But no one died. That is what matters. That night, you go home to your house in Brooklyn. Your wife has dinner ready, pasta with tomato sauce, bread, red wine. Your children talk about their day at school. Your daughter practiced her penmanship. Your son learned about George Washington. They are Americans. Your children. They will never work in tunnels. They will never know that Bima pressure of compressed air or the fear of rock collapse or the sound of water breaking through stone. This is what you have bought with your damaged body and your constant fear, their safety, their education, their chance to be something more than diggers in darkness. Every aching joint, every nightmare, every friend who died, these were the price of their American future. After dinner, you sit on your small porch and smoke a cigarette. From here, you can see Manhattan in the distance, its skyscrapers lit up against the night sky. Somewhere beneath those towers, in tunnels you helped dig, subway trains are running, carrying tens of thousands of people home from work, to dinner, to their families. Those people will never think about the tunnels they travel through. They will never know the names of the men who dug them. They will never imagine the darkness and the danger and the constant threat of death. The subway will simply be there, reliable and invisible, part of the infrastructure of daily life. This is as it should be. The subway was not built to be admired, but to be used. The tunnels were not carved for glory, but for transportation. The work was not meant to be remembered, but to enable life above ground to continue more efficiently. But you remember. You remember Giovanni Rossetti, crushed under falling rock in 1902. You remember Marco dying from the bends in 1915. You remember 100 other men whose names you have forgotten but whose deaths you witnessed. You remember the weight of the earth pressing down, the pressure of the water held back, the constant fear that accompanied every shift. The subway exists because men like you were willing to work in conditions that most people cannot imagine. It exists because immigrants came to America desperate enough to risk everything for $3 a day. It exists because some men died and others were broken so that millions could travel in comfort. You crush out your cigarette and go inside. Tomorrow you will descend into the earth again. We'll walk through tunnels, being carved beneath the streets. We'll supervise crews drilling and blasting and building. The work continues. It always continues. There are always more tunnels to dig, more infrastructure to build, more of the city to create beneath the surface. You are 44 years old. Your body is damaged, but you can still work. You will work for another 10 years until 1935, when the pain in your joints becomes too severe and your hearing's too poor to be safe in the tunnels. You will retire with a small pension, will live in your house in Brooklyn, will die in 1948 at age 57, too young but not unexpectedly so, for a man who spent decades working in compressed air. But that is years ahead. Right now in 1925, you are still a foreman, still walking the tunnels, still ensuring that the work is done safely, still carrying the memory of everyone who died so that the city could grow beneath the streets as well as above them. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, carry these images with you. Patrick Murphy drilling through rocks 60 feet below Broadway, the sledgehammer ringing on steel, building the first subway tunnel, one blow at a time. Antonio Luca inside a caisson beneath the East River, breathing compressed air so dense it feels like drowning, his body being slowly destroyed by nitrogen bubbles. Antonio again, older and limping, walking through tunnels in 1925, remembering the dead, supervising the living, ensuring that the work continues. These are the men who built New York's subway. Not the engineers whose names appear on plaques, not the politicians who attended the opening ceremonies, but the sandhogs, immigrant men who worked in darkness and danger, who breathed rock dust and compressed air, who risked their lives every day for $3.50. The subway still runs, 722 miles of tunnel, carrying 5.5 million passengers every day, connecting neighborhoods and boroughs, making New York function as a unified city. It is one of the great engineering achievements of the 20th century. But the names of the men who dug it are mostly lost. The sandhogs are forgotten, except by their families, except by the few historians who care about worker history, except by those who understand that every piece of infrastructure has a human cost. We remember them now. We honour them by riding the trains they built, by using the system they created, by understanding that every tunnel required not just engineering and money, but sweat and fear, and sometimes blood. Every station, every platform, every mile of track. These were carved by men with drills and shovels, by men who descended into the earth and sometimes never returned. Sleep well, knowing that beneath the streets of New York, in the tunnels that carry millions of people each day, the work of the sandhogs continues. Invisible, essential, the foundation upon which the city depends. Thank you for descending with me into the depths. Next time, we will continue building New York, bridging its waters, lighting its streets, creating the infrastructure that transformed a collection of neighborhoods into the greatest city in America.